have to remember, okay, there must be something different that we can do. And this became even more apparent to me when COVID actually happened. This was one of the hardest years of my life. But when COVID happened, everything had shut down, and it was really kind of promising because people were saying, I finally see the inequities going on, right? Like we get it. There was a lot of professional learning, but we were focused on this whole idea of loss. And that was what was happening broadly, but in my household, I had a son who was now in 4th grade, who had done extraordinarily well through that point and was failing at this point, completely failing. Only because of his test scores did he go to 5th grade. But he wasn't engaged. We were starting to fight all the time. It was the first time my son had talked to me about the thought of suicide. My kid talking to me about the thought of suicide. He was so bored looking at that screen, and yet he's so beautiful and so smart. I was paying attention to him during this time, and I noticed that when he was disengaging from this boring, blank class, he was on YouTube. He had really gotten into yachts at this point. You know, my son asked me why we don't have a Lamborghini. I was like, boy, well, who do you think we are? Yachts, though, but that's cool. You know, he could have that. So he was looking at yachts, and he was asking me about how he could start a business with these yachts, how he could acquire himself some of these toys. And also, as I was watching him really be engaged in this idea of yachts, I noticed that my daughter had really got in touch with this new thing called Canva. And with Canva, we had just been releasing street data, and she was making stuff like this. I didn't even ask her to do it. She began to make marketing materials for the book. She said, Mom, what do you think I should say? I was like, girl, I don't know. Like, say it in a kid way that we're trying to listen. And this is what she came up with. Need some advice with helping students? Of course, we have the perfect book. If you are someone that you know is interested in learning about helping schools and what to do in situations with a student, go ahead and get this for them and you. So inspiring. This girl took a tool because she had this free time, and she started just doing things that mattered to her. The disconnect was starting to become so visible. The kids weren't not thinking. The kids were not empty. But we, because of this tight focus on these marks and the recovering and the running, were missing it. And I'd venture to say that oftentimes we are still missing it. So as I looked at my daughter and looked at my son with these darn yachts, I started to realize, oh shoot, my kids are dreaming. They're really thinking about some things that are possible in this world. And so they were the first seeds planted in this belief that I have that the alternative, the way that we can potentially restart and reorient ourselves is by beginning to dream. That was the first piece that drew me in. And then a good friend of mine, Rachel Reinhardt, who I love so much, I was telling her about this, and she introduced me to a book about the Black radical imagination, and a book around freedom dreaming by Robin D.G. Kelley. And in this text, he found that every single movement around liberation began with radical dreaming. And in this, dreams were central to the fight for justice and freedom, and that without new visions, we would risk singular focus on deconstruction rather than reconstruction. That dreams offer a liberatory space to imagine a world once injustices are eradicated and full humanity is realized. Just take that in for a moment. Stuff is hard right now. It really is. Political environment is not my thing right now. What I see happening in schools, that blows me too. But then I go back to a time, you can pick so many different times, but I think of the one 400 years ago when people were in bondage. Bondage. Could literally be killed for reading. And they were able to dream. how did they do that? Why did they do that? How could they be in a situation that seems impossible and still dream? And not only dream, but get to freedom as a result. I think those are the people I want to learn from. The people who could see pain, difficulty, and all of that and say, you know what? I think there's a different way to live and a different way to be. That is how I got to radical dreaming. So I'm using this term radical dreaming. If you know me, you know that I hate using words and not defining them. So it's important that I name exactly what it is, because this is not a fluffy notion. It is a very rigorous one. When I say radical dreaming, I mean the ability to face the reality of inequity as it is, name it, understand it, and then envision a new world where injustice is eradicated and all human beings can thrive. When you radically dream, there are two parts. Number one is to name the uncomfortable truth. What's the truth that we know to exist, but we don't want to play with it? Or we want to play with it just a little bit and then get right back to the mark. When you name the uncomfortable truth, you have to say, what inequities do we need to name? What are we trying to disrupt? That's the deconstruction. It is important to talk about the issue. But if you're radically dreaming, then you have to move yourself to envisioning justice when it is realized. And giving yourself the opportunity to say, what could it look like if this particular inequity was eradicated? What is the picture of justice that we see? So if I'm in a position right now where I see that we are having an issue with our students saying that they're not engaged in this class because they don't feel seen or heard or valued, and we know that's an inequity, then we can't just stay there talking about how that's such an issue. We have to get alongside them and say, well, what would it look like if you were seen, heard, valued, and engaged in this space? I was going to spend some time naming this uncomfortable truth with you all, but I'm going to skip this one. I had changed it earlier. Have y'all seen this video before of this boy on TikTok and YouTube? Y'all. I didn't you said I should play it? All right, I'll play it anyway. But I'm going to be trying to figure out how, I see my time. I'm like, oh my gosh. But this student really took a moment to name some uncomfortable truths. And so the point of this video really is, instead of me going on about it, I wanted us to hear it from a student. So I'll go ahead and play it. Oh, hey. Why? It's supposed to play. Why is it not playing? Well, it's supposed to play on click, but it's not. I'm sorry. His name is Jeff Bliss. You can look him up. I'm going to give you another example. So Jeff's just talking about how we don't teach to the heart and how much we sort kids and how we don't take them serious, and he's really mad when he's saying it. So much great, righteous anger. Jeff Bliss, look him up. He was a high school dropout and then got really clear on some things and decided to speak truth to power. But I want to give you an example that's really relevant to right now in terms of this uncomfortable truth, because on Friday, I was substituting in a third grade classroom, in one of them third grade classrooms that we like to talk about in spaces like this, full of black and brown children. Scores aren't where they need to be. They made me earn that money that day, but I wasn't gonna lose though, so I won. We did a lot of great things. But as we were walking through the day, I was given some multiplication sheets for them to do. The students could not do them. I asked them, hey, what do you all do besides doing these worksheets? And they said, well, we get on the computer and we do iReady. I said, oh, y'all do iReady? Okay, that's cool. What else do you do? And they were like, okay, we do the computer and we do these worksheets. I was like, so can we go outside? They were like, go outside? I was like, yeah, on the playground, y'all got 3. And they were like, we don't go outside anymore. So on that day, in terms of uncomfortable truth, I received this at the end of my time with them. Now, where is it going? Hey, where are you? Did I do something? Okay, I received this at the end of the day. You are the best substitute because you let us go outside. I was very touched because I did feel like I built some really great relationships. And then I think about the uncomfortable truth. I was the best sub because you went outside? Dang. the mark got us constraining, more instructional time, we call it, and less time outside. Wow. That is an uncomfortable truth. And I have to sit with it. I'm still sitting with it. It even makes me emotional in this moment. Dang. Because I'm only there that one day, you know what I'm saying? That's what they have in every day. So we can see this uncomfortable truth if we tune into it. And we can get upset, because it does provide me with some righteous anger. But then we have to decide we're going to do something with it. I'm going to skip this in service of some other things. We have to begin somewhere in terms of disrupting this whole situation. So we can name the uncomfortable truth. Dang, this deck is not the right one, but that's okay. Then we have to start radically dreaming. And one of my favorite people who supports this notion of radical dreaming is Dr. Chris Emdin. Have you heard of him? I hope. It's amazing, right? He just wrote a new book called STEM, Steam, Make, Dream, and he talks all about this notion of dreaming and how important it is to create a dream-based culture in class. I want to give you all an example of one radical dream. These should be playing every time. Does anyone know what's going on? Help me, please. I want my videos to play. Help me, someone.
What is your next generation vision for education? Or another way to say this is, what is your radical dream for the next generation of education?
Ooh, that's a great question. First of all, I have a lot of answers, though. I don't know if I was going to do it. I just dream of spaces where young folks are free to be themselves and learn. I dream of classrooms where interdisciplinarity is the norm, and we don't say the science kid, the math kid, the English kid, the social studies kid, the art kid. I dream of spaces where teachers are open to learn from students and students are open to learn from teachers, and that notion that one person has knowledge and one does not is completely eradicated. I dream of places of rigor. And people oftentimes don't perceive this work as rigorous, but I want young folks to be asking graduate school level questions in the 4th grade. And the notion that this heart work and love work is absent from intellectual and academic rigor is such a stupid idea. So I dream of places of love and rigor in close relationship with each other.
I mean, when you just hear that, doesn't it touch your spirit? Just the level of energy he has, the verve, the excitement he has when he starts doing that dreaming. So I had wondered, okay, like hearing the radical dream is really cool, but like, can you do something with it? And I was so lucky, please let this video play. I was so lucky to be able to find out that he actually has been doing so much with this radical dream.
Brian Nozier is teaching computer science.
Can you press pause
but his classroom
real quick?
Doesn't feel like a...
In this video, I want you to pay particular attention to how the radical dream he just mentioned is being manifested in this particular project with students.
What was the first layer of that design?
Brian Nozier is teaching computer science, but his classroom doesn't feel like a typical computer science lab.
It feels like a theater, and it feels like when you come to teach, you should put on a show. You should come in to inspire people and try to get them to connect with each other about ideas, because that's what this is about.
It's called a collider classroom, featuring open space, flexible seating, and even a faux grass lawn. It was created at Lincoln Center by scholar-in-residence Christopher Emdin. He set out to design a room that would make kids comfortable after students told him the pandemic had left them isolated, frustrated, and disconnected. The plan was to inspire schools, and he did. After a visit, the education department partnered with him to build a collider classroom at the Williamsburg High School of Art and Technology.
To see something I dreamt of, that I built and created with an amazing team, come to life in classrooms in 2 months is magical.
Once it came to life, a group of students started building on it, learning about human-centered design and deciding how to lay out the classroom.
It's more of an interactive space.
Nyla Ruiz, a senior, is one of the students crafting the floor plan.
I really love this space, and because of the fact that I'm working on this space, I feel proud of it.
The students want to make the room feel comfortable, even nostalgic, like an elementary classroom. There's a whiteboard on the floor, scribbled on by cross-legged teens, and comfy seating that isn't assigned.
We wanted to deviate from normalcy. You wanted students to have options, you wanted them to have choices, you wanted them to be able to come into the room and not feel like I have to be forced into this box.
With most students having spent 18 months outside any classroom, school's Chancellor Misha Porter says making children feel both physically and emotionally safe is key.
Part of coming back from the pandemic was creating wide open spaces where you could social distance if you needed to, but also, get intimate in spaces where you need to.
Porter, along with staff from the School Construction Authority and Lincoln Center, toured the classroom last week and made an announcement.
We're going to be doing this over 15 classrooms across New York City.
She says she hopes that's just the beginning. Those 15 new Collider classrooms will have a similarly student-led design process, and they'll be ready for classes beginning in the fall of 2022. In Brooklyn, Jillian Jorgensen, New York 1.
Thank you so much for finding that video. I really appreciate it. So when I bring this video to you all, if we had more time, I'd have you all have a discussion about it. But the point here is this. The idea of radical dreaming is not just an activity to do for the sake of doing it. It is an opportunity, a space, an opening for us to come out of this notion of recovery and fixing and problems and saying, what actually are we trying to do? What is it that we actually want to make possible? And when Chris Emdin puts that notion and takes it serious, something emerges, an opportunity to dream with our students. And now engagement doesn't just become about how are you engaged so that you can access the curriculum, so that you can do the test. The dreaming and the engagement becomes about their own agency. And that is what, at least what I've heard, the students are asking us for. I just feel like that's such a good example of what radical dreaming can do in practice. Now, when I saw the other speakers, I was like, this time thing, like it really is a thing. Not that much left. So we're going to try to do this really quickly. All right, so I think, what do I want to say? What do I want to say in these last 3 minutes? Okay, this is what I want to say in the last 3 minutes. Number one, Chris Emdin's example is out in the world. I like to see stuff in real life. So I've been working with some teachers. My favorite one is Hannah Elmy, and I brought to her this idea of radical dreaming. And she's so bummed, she was like, I'm going to do it in my classroom now. She's been doing it for 2 years now. And we had created this teacher activity for them to kind of imagine what it would look like for students to be building toward their radical dreams. She did it with her students, has done it with her students. And here's some of their dreams, but I'm gonna tell you what I think is important about this. So one is, my dream realized I wanna make music and artwork to be seen in an art gallery. Not I just wanna be an artist. I wanna see my work in the art gallery. That is a very clear dream. I can help make that happen in this school year if we want to. Another example, my dream is to start a family, be successful, be myself. I want to help people, animals, by volunteering, helping the homeless, animal shelters, nursing homes. Couldn't we do that this year? That child would see how powerful they are. But here's what I actually want you to know about this. When Hannah did this with her students, this particular group was 8th graders. The most profound thing she found was when they said, no one has asked me my dreams before. The very first thing we can do is, first of all, buy into the idea. I think it's a good one. But then we have to not see this as a luxury. We have to start asking students, what are their dreams? They are dreaming, I promise you. And maybe they don't have the perfect words for it, but I promise you they're doing it. The second example I wanted to give to you all, which I need to do very fast, is of an actual school I am working with right now, trying to bring this into practice. Melissa, where are you? Melissa, hi, Melissa, Courtney, hi. We are working on trying to bring this to life right now. And in this work we are doing together, we have a community of practice around radical dreaming with all their instructional staff. We've shared with them the idea, the notion, and what we promised ourselves is that we would take up the notion and then we would start dreaming with kids. We would dream with them, we would take their ideas, we would implement them, we'd ask them what they thought, and do it again and again. Since we have started this work, Maya now has a capstone project developed by students. The students have rethought about how they want their one-on-one meetings with teachers to go. The students have seen us bring them our ideas for what those things could look like, and just a few weeks ago, they just iterated on the project again. And every single time we're with the students, it's incredible to see how we go in with notions like maybe they're not really thinking about this right now, and they actually are. If I had the time, I would share with you one example from an amazing teacher. She has a student in her classroom who produced no work last year. You could think of this student as someone who would be challenging to deal with because he has a single parent, and all of his life is not perfect. But she decided to start asking him about his radical dreams. And some of his dreams had to do with fishing and learning about how he could be a fisherman. And that was something that he could do with his father. She started to develop projects for him around this notion of helping him become a fisherman. His work is being produced, leaps and bounds, credits, he's doing the thing. So with my 0 seconds left, here's what I'm going to say to you all. I firmly, firmly believe in this notion of radical dreaming. I am asking you, I am begging you, I am pleading with you. If you don't do anything else, I guess for the next 10 minutes, because you're going to hear another speaker, give yourself the opportunity, some space, just to dream. And if you can give yourself a little bit of space just to dream, then see how you can give that space to others, and I promise you, you're going to see some pretty incredible things, because I'm seeing them right now. Okay, I appreciate you all.